Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. It's good to be back in the studio after the Lunar New Year's Day. I hope every one of you had a great, relaxing time during the holiday. We have two experts on the subject in the studio. First, we are joined by Professor Kim Hannah. Professor Kim, welcome to the program again.
Thanks for having me again.
We are also joined by Professor Lee Kyung-seok of International University. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Last week, we had a Lunar New Year or Seoll날 holiday in Korea, one of the nation's major national holidays. How was your holiday, Professor Lee?
It wasn't such a great time. I spent my time with my family, with my adorable nieces.
Oh.
We made Korean traditional food, tteokguk, jeon, mandu together.
Okay.
We played yunori with my family.
So you're a great uncle to them, right?
Oh, I try to be, yeah.
Okay, that's very nice. How about you, Professor Kim?
I also spent time with family and relatives and also caught up on work, but most importantly, I was able to catch up on some much needed rest.
Okay. With your dog, I guess?
With my dog, yes.
Right. That's a great catch-up time. You know what? The survey found that Korea was the country with the largest number of its citizens spending this Seoll날 outside the home country. Other Asian countries celebrating the Lunar New Year's Day are also ranked high. But it is quite surprising that Korea topped the list. For Seoll날 trips for Koreans, the most favored destination is Japan, and Vietnam and Thailand come in second and third. Have you been to one of these three countries?
Oh, yeah. Recently, I went to Japan with my father and mother. I went to Kyoto, Osaka, Nara, and Kobe.
Great.
It was a really impressive cities. I really can feel the exotic environment, really different from Korea. And also I really enjoyed the food there.
Professor Kim, any of these three countries?
I visited all three and I really liked all of them for their scenery and food, but I liked Japan the most and then Vietnam and Thailand.
That's your favorite destination?
It is, yes.
Right.
Dr. Bong, where have you been?
Well, I was outside the Asian continent with my wife. I went to Paris, France, and I realized how old I am actually because it was my fourth trip to Paris and we saw Mona Lisa. And this time Mona Lisa looked very different to me. I think it's me aging right. There is a bad news for Korea. Professor Kim, I heard that the number of inbound tourists to Korea has been diminishing in number, right?
It has decreased a bit, especially compared to the global tourist statistics. So according to the UN World Tourism Organization, 1.28 billion people have traveled internationally, which is about 80% of the number pre-COVID times. So this was the report in 2019. In Korea, there was about 11 million foreign tourists who had come in, which is about 63% of the numbers before COVID. And it's far lower than other areas. So in the Middle East, there's actually more tourists now before COVID. And Europe, America, and Africa saw about 90% of its tourist numbers as similar to pre-COVID levels.
That's a significant gap. Only 62% for Korea, but other countries are almost at the pre-COVID-19 level or even exceeding that level, right?
Right.
Tourism was one of the sectors hit hardest by the pandemic, of course. The tour industry was halted around the world during the COVID-19 pandemic, and Korea was not an exception. International arrivals nearly stopped, and the number of inbound tourists plunged to a record low. It was expected Korea's tourism would soon recover to pre-pandemic levels after the COVID-19 situations were downgraded from a pandemic to an endemic, but it's not the case yet. So, Professor Lee, why is Korea falling in this trend?
So, as Professor Kim mentions, the total number from the Chinese tourists was heavily declined compared to the pre-pandemic era. So one of the main reasons is definitely the economic recession right now in China. So the purchasing management index right now in China is really low. So the individual purchasing power is relatively low before the COVID-19 era. So the Chinese people in general, they have relatively low money to spend. So that's one of the reasons. The external macroeconomic factors is one of the definitely reasons that affects the new trends in Korea. Also, there's a big changes in the Asian tourisms. They are more individualized and they perform more like a small group tourisms. And such a big trends, a change in trends it shows up revealed to the a new like a decline in the total number of tourism.
I see. So according to Professor Lee's explanation, Chinese tourists account for a big portion of tourism in South Korea. Then is there any way that the Korea can boost the Chinese tourists coming to South Korea at the previous level?
So as Professor Lee mentioned, part of the reason why we're seeing less Chinese tourists in Korea is because the Chinese economy is in decline. There's this perceived economic downturn where people feel like they can't travel as much. But also the Korean won is stronger than a lot of other countries right now. So especially in comparison to Japan, the Korean won is stronger than the Japanese yen.
Koreans are flying to Japan instead of Japanese are flying in South Korea.
Right. And Chinese tourists are probably flying more to Japan as well. So we're definitely seeing this kind of trend.
So there's a lot of macroeconomic aspects of this phenomenon.
Yes.
Okay, Professor Lee, the tourism industry is very important to any country, but South Korea must be one of them. So how significant is tourism to South Korean economy? If the level of the tourists coming to South Korea has not reached the pre-pandemic level, then I believe that the South Korea tourist industry is in stagnation?
So it's really surprising that the contribution of the tourist industry to the total South Korean GDP it's relatively low. So it's the 5th lowest ranking among the OECD countries. So definitely we have to think about how the government and the private sector can cooperate and to have a long-term project to boost up the tourist industry.
I see. The Korean government designated 2023 and 2024 as the Visit Korea year and is actively working to attract tourists. Let's examine how the Korean tourism industry is doing and what more it should be doing to attract foreign tourists. Please take a look at a video first before we continue on.
How attractive and appealing is Korea as a tourist destination? In 2022, 90.6% of foreign tourists said that they were willing to visit Korea again in 3 years. However, the actual rate of those revisiting Korea dropped from 2019. What are the reasons for the lower rate of actual revisits? Foreign tourists expressed satisfaction with their first visit to Korea, but many of them say they hardly find new activities to do when visiting Korea again. What foreign tourists want to do in Korea has also changed. In the past, foreign tourists came to Korea to shop for K-beauty products and entertainment-inspired merchandise. But these days, they come for food. As of the third quarter of 2023, many foreign tourists cited gastronomic experiences as a reason for visiting Korea. Riding on the global success of K-pop, movies, and TV shows, Korean food is winning over palates worldwide. Foreign celebrities and stars no longer find Korean food strange. British pop star Sam Smith was seen visiting Gwangjang Market in Seoul and eating Korean street food and local delicacies, including live octopus. Fashion model Iris, daughter of actor Jude Law, drew attention with her travel like the locals tour of Seoul. A new place is emerging as a popular destination among foreign lovers of Korean food. That is Ramyeon Library located in Mapogu, Seoul. It sells 255 kinds of instant noodles popular at home and abroad. It is popular among foreign tourists who want to eat a hot bowl of ramyeon at a hanging river park, as they saw in Korean TV shows.
直接この作る機会をやるのを楽しみにしてきました。
They experience something new and enjoy a flavor of Korea.
これ求めてた味です。美味しい。日本に持って帰りたいです。
That was very good. That was a bit spicy, but it tastes really. I like it. We want that picture of this very impressive ramen shop.
After eating ramen at the store, foreign customers purchase some more. They buy an average of 3.4 packs per person.
평소에는 접하지 못했던 봉지 라면을 바로 이제 조리 기계를 이용해서 먹을 수 있다는 것에 좀 메리트가 있어서 많이 찾아와 주시는 것 같습니다. 평일 기준으로는 한 60% 정도 되고 주말에는 한 70% 정도 되는 것 같습니다.
These days, many foreign tourists prefer having hands-on experiences of Korean people's everyday lives.
Yeah, I love it. It's really good, actually. So we'll definitely come back again here and try a different kind of ramen. 맛있어요.
It is necessary for Korea to fascinate foreign tourists with new charms and make them want to return.
It is impressive that tourist destinations built for Koreans are also popular among foreign tourists. Professors, foreign tourists visiting a library dedicated to the Korean instant noodle ramyeon. What do you think of this?
I think it's an amazing concept, and I actually have not been yet. And I know that it's located in Hongdae. It's not just the museum, but it's also sponsored by the convenience store CU. So because of that, it has a variety of different things. But it has 100 types of ramen and 120 types of cup ramen, meaning that I can go 255 times and try different types of ramen each time. So it sounds like a great place to go. So it's not only in a popular location, but everyone loves ramen. It's affordable and it's good. But also it's promoted heavily in K content as well. So I can imagine a lot of tourists would want to go.
Is ramyeon one of your favorite food?
So absolutely, and I can really feel the
You
popularity.
sound so much like a typical Korean man.
I am a typical Korean man, but I can feel the popularity of the Korean ramen. Especially, I read a recent articles that the tourists in Switzerland, they are able to eat and they really enjoy eating the Shinramyeon, the mother's home, the top mountain place. And also especially the Western people. It's my prejudice, but the people really like the spicy ramen. And I was really surprised when I was in the States. They have a challenge, like eating the spicy Korean ramen among their peer groups. So I mean, it's a good trend and a really a surprising trend.
The popular item when you eat ramen is Gimbap, right? The video clip we have just watched show a lot of important changes in the trends of tourism towards South Korea. Since you teach international students in your classes, have you witnessed any important change in the foreign students' attitude toward the South Korean culture?
So for me, a majority of my students are international students, and what I've noticed is that now even though initially students would try to focus more on going to shopping districts and focus on shopping, now we're seeing much more of an interest in more traditional and more cultural aspects. So some of my students go to the Insadong area and go to Gyeongbokgung, and they wear the hanboks and they walk around in that area. But they also really like this mix between traditional and modern areas. And we see a lot of that in Seoul. So especially in areas like Seongsu-dong, where we have cafe streets. Shinsadong also has cafe streets, and students really enjoy these cafes. We're also seeing more people enjoying the natural areas. So places like Cheonggyecheon, some of my students really like to walk around that area as well. So we're definitely seeing much more diverse interests within Korea.
How about you?
I want to echo to Professor Kim's point. So I've observed they're more interested in Korean food in general. So for example, they really love to go Gwangjang-Sijang and try to eat makgeolli.
Local food.
Local food. A really traditional local market that was not famous and really, I would say, a little bit idiosyncratic for them. But they really love to go there and eat pajeon with makgeolli, for example, yukhae. And these kind of new trends, it's really surprising.
Then what accounts for the rise of these new trends in foreign tourism to South Korea? We would just imagine, as you said, that these foreign tourists would be mainly attracted to what they have observed in the K-drama, right? But as you said, that they are into Korean nature and the traditional food, right? What accounts for these changes?
There could be a lot of explanations, but one line of thinking is definitely the influence from the Korean media, the K cultures. So they don't know about the Korean food, the traditional Korean food, but they are really heavily exposed by the Korean dramas, Korean musics, Korean movies, and in that movies, it's really easy to expose to the Korean traditional foods. And this is, I would say, a really important channel to link the international students or the exchange students to the local Korean culture and food.
I see.
To add on to what Professor Lee said, earlier we were talking about the ramen museum, and we see people eating ramen on Korean dramas and Korean movies all the time. So that kind of exposure and awareness can lead to more interest. And also, as Professor Lee mentioned, like Gwangjang, Sijang, these areas that are showing up more and more on K content, I think plays a huge role. There are a lot of scenes in Korean dramas where people are eating ramen by the Han River. And I think a lot of tourists want to come and try that experience as well.
So one thing leading to another.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right. So I think we have established the clues that explain the new trends on the rise in tourism to South Korea. Then, Professor Lee, based upon our analysis of the new trend, then what can South Korea do to attract more foreign tourists?
So here comes the gap between software and hardware. So because of the Korean culture, the populism, the popular Korean dramas, Korean musics, or Korean, like everything, the Korean cultures, the contents, the foreigners are really familiar to these contents. But the gap comes here. There's, in terms of the hardware perspective, for example, the infrastructures, the language problem, I would say Korea is not way behind, but a little behind compared to Japan, for example. So definitely to boost up the tourist industries, what the Korean government can do is give more like a holistic support from the infrastructure perspective to solve the language problem, to solve the transportation problems, for example.
And also, earlier we were talking about food, but according to statistics, food is the #1 reason why tourists are coming to Korea. Surprisingly, K-pop and Hallyu was ranked 8th. And nature was ranked 3rd. So we're kind of seeing that food and nature are almost overpowering.
I would expect that nature would be ranked really low.
Right. But the statistics actually showed that food was ranked at the top. So.
As you said, that the Korean dramas and pop musics and movies are the window for them to look into what Korea can offer, right, to the foreign tourists. So I think it remains very important for South Korean tour industry to tap on the power of Korea's pop culture to foreigners. So what more can be done to use that Korean pop culture products to develop better tourist programs?
Yeah, so I think right now we need to not just limit ourselves to just K content. We need to have some storytelling tour packages that explain Korea's cultural heritage a bit more, and I think that would work as one of the main attractions. We should also try to diversify products that promote this culture in conjunction with local areas as well. Then we can see much more of this influence.
Related to the topic, what country can be a good example for South Korea to emulate?
In my opinion, I think France would be a really good example. France continues to be one of the main cultural hotspots in the world. It's still a honeymoon spot, a major honeymoon spot. But people are interested in French cuisine, French wine, the fine arts in France, music, ballet. But in Korea, we're seeing a similar trajectory, but I think that cultural history aspect is missing a bit. So if we can promote that aspect, then I think Korea could also potentially follow France's trajectory and work as a cultural hotspot.
I'd like to highlight the 2 countries as my choices of example for South Korea. First one is Japan, and the other one is Thailand. Both countries can be a good example for South Korea to emulate because foreign tourists know what they're going to get in both countries, right? If you go to Thailand, you're going to enjoy relaxing environment in nature with nice food, right? A very open culture as well. That's not for everyone, but if there's a group of foreign tourists who are really gravitated to enjoying such a culture, then that will be the destination. Likewise, Japan, you know what you're going to be able to enjoy, the hot spas, and the nice food, kind people, clean nature. So it is important for South Korea to make sure what the foreign tourists can, with a certainty, enjoy once they arrive in South Korea. What country is your choice?
So both of you really mentioned a lot about Japan. I think Japan is a really perfect example that have a really great combination between historical side and also the commercial district. So for example, when I went to Kyoto, it was really interesting and really impressive that the whole city, it's under the big pictures, the big umbrella about the history, but all the commercial, like the restaurants, for example, the souvenir shops, they're really located and linked to the the historical environment and the cultures. So for my suggestions could be in terms of this kind of historical sites, the commercial district should be regulated under the government, for example, law or a policy that can preserve this really historical culture and the environment and vibe to actually promote the unique Korean culture to the foreigners.
I see. The government and the corporations are on the forefront in promoting the tour industry of South Korea, but that doesn't necessarily mean that individual South Korean citizens do not play any role in attracting more foreign tourists. What kind of advice can you give South Korean people in general to give their own 2 cents to promotion of tourism to South Korea?
I think one thing to consider is to show more inclusion towards foreigners. Sometimes it may be explicit or sometimes it's implicit, but we sometimes see some discrimination towards foreigners. So showing that they're included within the society, whether they're just visiting or living here, I think would be an important part. But also, some of my students have told me that they are often restricted into entering certain areas because they're foreigners. So I think kind of managing that would also be important, and to remove those types of barriers for foreign tourists and foreigners in Korea. And I think also in addition to this, we need to treat them as equally as every other member of society. And I think also just watching more arirang and watching the Roundtable and promoting foreign tourists and foreigners to watch the Roundtable would be helpful.
I cannot agree with you more. Right? Professor Lee, any piece of advice?
I mean, my advice it's come from more for the government, for the a public approach. So definitely the private sectors, they're doing very well, I think. And the Korean people in general, they're really generous, they're really open-minded. But we need more like a holistic support from the government for the language translations, not only in the main mega cities, but also in the really small cities. For example, I went to the Hwacheon, which is 20,000 people there. But it's one of the biggest festival, the Hwacheon Sancheoneo Ice Festival. During the 3 weeks, 1.5 million people went to Hwacheon just for the small Sancheoneo Ice Festival. And it's a really tiny city, but the logistics was really fully supported for the local government. And they provide all this kind of language translation services, also transportation services, and they have a really good content. So if the private sector and also the public sectors have a really good cooperations, it's really a good way to attract foreigners, not only to the mega cities, the major sightseeing, for example, Gyeongju, but also to really small cities.
I'd like to highlight the 2 things to South Korea's advantages, something South Korea has been doing really well. One is the free and reliable access to Wi-Fi for foreigners who do not have to buy any program, spend any money to have the benefits. Second thing is a very good, reliable, clean transportation. Have a wide access to many interesting places. So South Korean government, corporation, individuals have to continue to tap on those things that they have been doing really well. And based upon your advice, they have to also incorporate a new element to even further promote South Korea's strength in tourism. We have talked about changing trends among foreign tourists to South Korea and examined the ways how tourism of Korea can be promoted. There is a saying that the best thing is what has been tested by time. What Koreans have enjoyed for a long time must also appeal to foreigners. Professor Kim and Professor Lee, thanks for coming to the program and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week with more updated analysis of the global issues. Thanks for watching and goodbye.